What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Alarm Fantasy Football. 'Twas the day before football, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even Travis Kelce's knee. We'll cover all of that news and stuff like that here today, but let me bring in or welcome in my co-host, obviously here from Fantasy Alarm's finest. You got Andrew Cooper at Coop A Fiasco on the old Twitter machine, and welcome back a sickly Britt Flinn, who has managed to hold it together here today to bring it to you. Why? Because we know it's the day before NFL Week 1, and there's lots going on. How are you guys doing today?
Yeah, sickness be damned. I'm going to be on the show the day before the start of the NFL season. There's no way that I'm missing this.
Britt Flinn flu game. Going for 50. Let's go, dude. They're going to be talking about it. They're going to be talking. People are already talking about it. I've seen it on the Twitter feed. They're like, there she is. Is she good to go? She was questionable coming into today, but I think you're going to show out, Britt.
Much like Travis Kelce. Is he questionable? Is he going to show up? We shall see.
Well, I mean, it's probably the elephant in the room right now, and we're going to get to some news and notes and things like that here. We're also going to play a little higher or lower with our friends over at Underdog Fantasy as well, but before we dive into all of that, are you guys done with your drafts? Are we still going? I've got 3 tonight. I've got a home league that's run by my friend Chris Carota. I've got another one that's run by my friend David Sherman, and then I've got my FFPC draft tonight. After all of that is said and done, all of that taking place on Lisa Ando's Fantasy. I'll be doing that live stream, double dipping on drafts, and then finishing that up to jump into another draft. So that's my schedule. How about you guys out there? Britt, more drafts to come still?
I do. I have 2 more tonight, more or less basically home leagues. And I will say last week on Lisa Ann, we were both drafting at the same time during the show. And it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of back and forth and, oh my God, this player just went, and it made for some very good banter. Plus, Lisa Ann is always sassy in the chats of the drafts that she's doing, so it makes it very fun.
Did you guys get a chance to share draft boards with the viewers here? Because one of the drafts that I'm doing while I'm on with Lisa Ann here is on ESPN, a site that doesn't have a draft board. I don't understand how CBS and ESPN, 2 of the biggest sites out there, still don't have draft boards for their for their draft rooms. I don't get it.
It actually makes a lot of sense because they don't care about us. That's why. They don't want us to be happy, right? Like, yes, there was one year where, and I don't want to bash on ESPN too much, but there was one year where when you went to log into fantasy hockey, they tried this thing out, and when you clicked the app, it played a 30-second ad before you could look at your team. So if you were trying to rush to get your lineups in, you had to watch an ad. I'm not even kidding. That was real. So not worried about those platforms. I don't really play on them. Before I get to my drafts, we had James Graziano in the chat saying, Fan at tight end only has Dalton Kincaid. Too risky for week 1. Would you drop A-Chain for Gerald Everett? Personally, Gerald Everett, if there was a better option available, if there was a Tyler Higbee out there where we could, basically say Cooper Kupp's out and there's no other targets, then I would say, hey, go with the safe guy. But in this particular instance, Gerald Everett last year, he wasn't even a full-time player, playing 70% of the snaps. He's now behind, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams only played essentially 2 full games together. If you look at it, you have all these targets, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I'd rather just go for the upside play. So I wouldn't drop anybody meaningful for Gerald Everett. And for me, of course, I still have drafts going. Howard, you and me have the Bourbon Bowl slow draft, which will probably finish sometime in October. So draft season for me might actually never end.
There is one very specific clock milker. Now, I haven't been great because I was away on vacation, and I was actually either on a plane or on shows when you messaged me to say that I was on the clock. But there is definitely somebody in that league who is a horrendous clock milker. Crazy. For sure. I don't want to call him or her out, but yeah.
I've been ripping through. I mean, I set my queue for the last one, so I had an auto for that one, but I've been doing all right with that one. So not many on that one.
And I want to go back to that question about Dalton Kincaid. I feel like Sauce Gardner and Stephon Diggs are going to be locked into coverage basically the entire time. because Sauce doesn't go across and play slot. I think that if Stephon Diggs is locked up by Sauce, that a lot of those passes are going to go to Dalton Kincaid. And then it's going to be a pretty lucrative week for him, even
Yeah.
as a rookie tight end.
It's true. I looked at it last year. Sauce Gardner, like obviously he's going to be playing on Diggs regardless, but last year he played over 1,000 snaps, only went into slot 9 times. So he doesn't go in there as is. Let's hit a couple quick questions before we go to the next thing. Just we got him in the chat here. Brandon is very excited in all caps. Says, "Should I trade Mark Andrews and no? Should I trade Mark Andrews, Mike Evans?
You got to shout it out there. Right? Come on.
Should I trade Mark Andrews, Mike Evans, and Ayuk for Kittle and Tyreek Hill? What do you guys think on that one? I think that's a little too much for Kittle's hurt himself right now, is he not?
Yeah, Kittle's hurt himself. Andrews is a top tight end. Evans and Ayuk. I mean, I love Ayuk, but I mean, who knows what happens with Evans? We talked about yesterday on Alarm Fantasy Football the possibility of the Giants clearing some cap space in order to trade for him. But until I see him actually off Tampa Bay and not having Baker Mayfield as his QB, that is not a deal. I mean, I don't want to, give up on Evans completely, but I don't want to hand over Andrews and Ayuk basically just for Tyreek. It's kind of what it is.
Yeah, that's the problem that I run into there is you're giving up too much. Maybe if it's a very shallow league and Ayuk was on your bench or Evans is on your bench, then maybe. But I don't know. I think I'm just sticking with Tyreek Hill. He's a first round pick. I'm sticking with Andrews, Evans, and Ayuk if they're all in my lineup. Yeah,
take that depth at wide receiver and keep that top tight end in there.
Yeah, and Britt, I got a question for you here. Cameron B says, "Hey there. Can you help me pick my RB2 and a flex for week 1? Options are Javonte Williams, B-Rob, Jalen Warren, Zay Flowers, Elijah Moore, Zay Jones, Marvin Mims." So quite a squad there. He needs 2 players from that group. One has to be running back.
I'm kind of looking at Brian Robinson here. I know that Javonte has a very favorable matchup against the Raiders, potentially without Chandler Jones. But so does Brian Robinson against the Cardinals. And I think that this game has the potential to get out of hand fairly early. So I'm leaning towards him because I just don't know how much they're going to work Javonte in week 1. And I actually like Elijah Moore. The Bengals lost a lot of their secondary pieces. I'm not sure how stout they're going to be in the secondary. And we've seen it in training camp that Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore have really developed some chemistry together out of that slot. So I kind of like Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I think it's very underrated that people aren't talking about the fact that the Bengals lost both their safeties, right? I mean, you've got Chidobe Awuzie, who's, their one returning corner, but, I definitely think that they're kind of underselling that. I like the Elijah Moore call. I love the Brian Robinson call too. I put together the NFL Week 1 DFS watch list, and Robinson is right on there. I know that we like Gibson, with Eric Bieniemy as being that guy. But I think you're right, Britt. I think that Washington has the capability of grabbing a nice lead. And once that happens, I think, Riverboat Ron is going to be like, yo, we don't need to push anything downfield too much here. Let's kill the clock and let's give it to Brian Robinson. So I think that's the way to go too.
With that Commander schedule, you'll have plenty of opportunity to start Antonio Gibson. This is probably one of the few Brian Robinson games, right?
Yeah.
Favored by 6 in that game, which is not going to happen much for this Commanders team. So I'm with you on those two. John and Pemba trying to convince me that Javonte Williams is a guy you can start right away, but I'm scared. I think I'm a little too scared. I don't know. You guys, I'd rather see a week than go right off the bat. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and that efficiency, we've seen it over and over again coming back from an ACL, not just week 1, but through the entire season. The efficiency has been down. They brought in Pirine for a reason, and I think that he's going to be utilized a lot more than Javonte, as Javonte kind of, no pun intended, gets his legs under him and gets back to full form. So week 1 scares me starting him.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't have an option like Brian Robinson available, then I'd be like, all right, yeah, go for it. I mean, if it was Javonte versus Charbonnet versus Jalen Warren, yes, then I'm leaning on Javonte. But when you've got an option like this, that's, I mean, I think just at least a higher floor than what you're looking at.
I'll say this: you did a good job of drafting a anchor RB team with Bijan. This is a Britt Flinn team if I've ever seen one, with the Bijan anchor RB. But this is the pain you got to deal with early on. You're hoping somebody emerges. You just got to give it a good stab. And if it pans out well for you, you won't have questions because hopefully somebody pops off that bench. But you did the right thing loading up on guys. But it is painful making a decision early on. Oface20, there's a regular in the chat. He wants to know Michael Thomas or Jordan Addison week 1. Now, you guys know my answer. I'm a Michael Thomas guy. What are you guys doing? I know, Howard, you've been a Jordan Addison guy all offseason.
I've been a Jordan Addison guy, absolutely, and I think I'm just going to kind of linger with that. I mean, I have Olave in the watch list also to check him out. But one of the things that I said was, you know what, I'm really nervous about all this nonsense of Taysom Hill being considered, a quarterback by Carmichael, their offensive coordinator. If he really is going to screw around with Taysom Hill, we know where that happens. It happens inside the red zone, and he starts taking off and he runs or whatever. I don't see him being a heavy passer. And again, I'm just not really, like you want to see Javonte again. I want to see Michael Thomas on the field. I want to see what his target share is. I want to see how he's utilized in this offense, because this guy wussed out for the last couple of seasons because he had an attitude issue, not a toe issue. It was an attitude problem, and I want to see what happens with him back now and Derek Carr under center.
I don't know. He said 3 hours ago on Twitter that he's a big bad wolf killer. So I mean, just got to keep that in mind.
Oh, okay. So he said that on Twitter. All right. Okay.
Break this tie for us.
Sold.
Break the tie.
Well, so my thing with Michael Thomas is that we don't know if he is the 1A or the 1B to Chris Olave. The Titans were very bad in their secondary last season, but they did bring over Sean Murphy-Bunting from the Buccaneers, who is pretty good in coverage. So depending on who he covers, whether or not it's Olave or Michael Thomas, I'm kind of potentially leaning Jordan Addison as well. I think that this game's going to be tighter than people think, just because Minnesota's defense is so bad. And that offense is going to have to throw quite a bit to stay in this game. So I'm leading Addison here.
Yeah. So for me, I like the upside of Addison long-term, and the idea of drafting him for the upside. I just worry that, he's not even going to be the second target on the team, that he's going to be the third fiddle. Whereas you talk about 1A and 1B with Michael Thomas, where we're not even sure. I mean, Michael Thomas, I'd be happy if he was second behind Chris Olave, and I don't see Juwan Johnson or Rashid Shaheed getting more targets. So that's why, personally, I just like Michael Thomas, but I've been on him all offseason. We've got a few more questions in here. We're going to hit your questions today. It's crunch time, so we're going to get on them. We'll push stuff aside. Do us a favor and hit subscribe on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube when you're watching right now. Smash that like button for us. Do us a favor, and we'll do you a favor and answer these questions. So we got one more in here, at least one more. You got a guy in his league looking to trade already. People are looking to wheel and deal with Mark Andrews today. So it's Debo and Mark Andrews for Garrett Wilson and Goddard. This one feels a little more fair. This one, and it's tough. I prefer trades when it's like somebody gets a running back and a wide receiver, somebody gets a tight end and a wide receiver, because now you can talk positions of need. It's always scary trading straight up positions, right? Because now it's like, man, you could get crushed here. So Debo, Britt, I'll go to you on this one first. Debo and Andrews on one side, Garrett Wilson and Goddard on the other side.
See, I wouldn't trade Mark Andrews away. He did return to practice today. All indications are pointing to him playing in week 1, and he is the guy, whereas Goddard has been, the third on the team in targets over and over and over again. I would actually see if he just wants to trade straight across Debo, Garrett Wilson, maybe throw in like some running back depth. It's hard to say because I don't know what either of your rosters look like to throw in like a little nice extra piece there. But I tend to prefer keeping Andrews. If you can get Wilson by throwing in another piece and countering that trade, that's what I would try to do.
Yeah, the advantage at tight end, I think, having Mark Andrews versus Dallas Goedert is that much more significant than going from Debo to Garrett Wilson. I love the upgrade from Debo to Garrett Wilson. I'm not in on Debo at all. So the question is does that outweigh the safety of having Andrews and Goddard? And you know what, to be perfectly honest, I kind of think it does, because I think Garrett Wilson's going to ball out this year. I think that he and Aaron Rodgers are definitely connected. I love the bit on Hard Knocks, knowing that Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson are best buddies, and the two of them are teaching each other more and more about the opposing position. And Goddard is a rock solid tight end one. You leave him right in there for you, and you don't worry about that. With Mark Andrews, yeah, I know that Lamar Jackson's going to lean on him, but you're also dealing with a new offensive scheme here, and you've added a bunch of weapons. You've added, Zay Flowers through the draft. You brought in Odell Beckham. Rashad Bateman is healthy again, so you do have certain situation here that there could be some questions about Mark Andrews. So I think I would make that deal in order to pick up that elite wideout in Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I think I'm with you too. And the difference maker for me is that Harbaugh is kind of an old school coach like Belichick, where he's like, they only disclose the information they're forced to disclose. So we will find out when the injury reports come out what it is Mark Andrews is dealing with, because you have to put it on the injury report, but they haven't even told us. I've tried to figure it out. I have no idea what the injury is for Mark Andrews.
He was supposed to return to practice today, they said. Right. So I don't know if he has or hasn't.
But I mean, it could be like, if it's a broken pinky, it's like, okay, you know what? He'll be fine. It'll heal. What if it's a hamstring though, or something like that? Now it's like, oh, what's going on? And who knows what it could be, So the fact that we don't know what it is, that does have me a little nervous. I just wish I knew. Like, I wish I knew, like, if it was like ribs or something. It's like, okay, let him heal and we'll be good. But I that worries me a little bit. And I'm with you. I think it's a big enough upgrade to get Garrett Wilson. So I'm going to go that way. All right, last question before we get to some stuff here. Scampers wants to know, Scott Fishbowl adds Jameis Winston or Jacoby Brissett, Eric Gray or Kareem Hunt, or anyone else you're looking at. Scott Fishbowl, pretty deep league. Yeah. So that's kind of I mean, Scamp, the guys I drafted, I'm probably just keeping the guys I drafted over those players, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Brissett does have some upside because the Saints did pay Derek Carr quite a bit of money. And then that move to Taysom Hill, he is still listed as a tight end, but now that he's also listed as a quarterback kind of gives me pause. I think that if Sam Howell doesn't do well, that Brissett still has a path to taking over later on in the season. As far as Eric Gray or Kareem Hunt, I would kind of just leave that alone.
Yeah, the guy I'm looking to add, if he's not added already, he probably is by now, but Clayton Tune or Joshua Dobbs. I mean, one of those guys might actually start if they're out there. So I'll give a go for one of those guys. All right, let's get into some.
Wait, before we do that, Brandon.
Oh, he does have another one.
He's got some updates here to this deal. What if it's just Mark Andrews and Evans for Tyreek and Kittle? If that's the case, then yes, I'm doing that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure.
Andrews and Evans in exchange for that. And then he's got another one up here as well. Jacoby Myers for Keenan Allen. If I'm trading Jacoby Myers, you're damn right I want Keenan Allen in return. I don't think you'll ever get that.
If that trade is on the board, what you do is you smash accept, and then you prepare to argue with your league mates who are going to say that that's not allowed.
They're going to be like, "What the hell's going on? It's collusion. It's collusion."
Yeah. Honestly, when I get a trade like that, I reach out to the other person and I try to throw like another meaningless player in there to make it seem fair. Like, it's like, I'll give you Jacoby Myers, and I was going to drop this guy, so you take him too. Sometimes you got to try and dress those trades up. But yeah, you take that trade immediately for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, if voids are allowed in your trade to be voted on, that one's going to be voted down almost immediately.
For sure.
Almost immediately. So before we get to the news and notes here from today, I also want to remind everybody, and I did this on Twitter earlier, tonight's Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM. We're actually broadcasting the Jam on Fantasy Football Draft. We recorded it last night, and that's on there. So because we're not helping you guys out with your lineups and your calls and everything like that, on Sirius XM, this show here today, tomorrow's Alarm Fantasy Football, as well as tomorrow's Getting Buzz. So basically from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday for week 1 opening night, I'm making it all just a full AMA. Just hit us up with anything. It's waivers, trade questions, lineup decisions, everything like that. So here today, just pop those questions into chat, and we're going to get to them all tomorrow. Again, Getting Buzzed will be me for an hour of just ask me whatever you want, and then the three of us will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. to do this all over again. So we've got you 100% smothered and covered here with lineup decision answers for you guys. So Make sure that you bookmark everything, and like Coop said, smash that like and subscribe button, and we'll keep you covered.
Hell yeah!
Just
If that's not enough, John and Pemba and I, right before the game on Thursday night, are going to do a quick 1 hour show before that too. So no one is being left behind. There'll be no man left behind tomorrow,
or woman.
I'm just going to say maybe tomorrow we should rename our show to the Waffle House Fantasy Football if we're smothering and covering everything.
Covered.
Damn right. I you know what, man? I'm on this diet still. It's killing me. So everything I have to say or think or whatever is all food related at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the Waffle House, dude. I went there for the first time ever, and it was exactly what I thought it would be.
Depressing.
In theory, it was better in theory than it was. And afterwards, I was like, roll me out of here into a grave.
But at least you got your paper hat.
I did get my paper hat that's around here somewhere.
Paper hat.
Because it's my first time they gave me a hat.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that sweet? Is there like somebody's hair stuck in there too? I wouldn't put that on, man. You get like Waffle House lice. You know that them critters are jumping. You know it. Thoughts on Jaden Reed from Brandon again. Brendan Grout, you've got some stuff going on here. Talk to me here. We'll start with Coop, the rookie wide receiver for Green Bay.
Yeah, so with Romeo Doubs out, it makes it a lot more interesting because obviously Christian Watson is the guy we think is going to be the top dog. I've got places where I'm stashing Reed. I got places where I'm stashing Luke Musgrave. We don't know who the second target's going to be right now. And, sometimes with a young QB like this, like Jordan Love, whoever earns his trust early, sometimes they hold on to that. They don't give it back. So I personally have Luke Musgrave prioritized over Reed for the simple reason that, one, I can start at tight end. And that scarcity is just a little more valuable. But, hey, if Jaden Reed comes out and has 7 targets, people will be adding him. So if you could get him on a bench somewhere and not give up too much to get a free look at him, absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
And I'll tack something onto that, and it's spoiling a little bit about the injury updates, but Christian Watson was also added to the injury report today and did not practice. And so if both of those guys are out, the wide receiver room is already so depleted and so thin in depth. If Christian Watson and Doubs don't play, then Jaden Reed's going to have 100% route participation. And I don't care if you're a rookie or not. He's going to get targets just out of pure necessity.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, let's follow up with the news then, since we're spoiling the injury report. Let's kind of hit on some of that stuff and go through it. Let's start with should we start with Travis Kelce? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the elephant in the room. We've got to start right there.
Yeah.
So his availability yesterday was said to be highly in doubt for tomorrow night's inaugural game after he did hyperextend his knee. The MRI is saying that the ACL is intact, but that there was too much swelling to get completely accurate results. He's going to get another one today, which I guess he did. And that diagnosis came out that it is just a bone bruise, which is a much better diagnosis and prognosis in the long term than any kind of ligament damage. Jason Kelce is also giving us the tea, saying that there is a chance that Travis can suit up. So I'm still planning on him playing, but what do we do for our fantasy teams if he doesn't go?
Well, I'll tell you right now, one thing, all last year for my DFS articles, I liked Noah Gray because he was an incredibly cheap dart throw that was free and that, he would get at least a target a game. But the people that think that he's going to just all of a sudden be a replacement for Travis Kelce and do something against a team that's pretty much spent the entire offseason thinking about how to stop the tight end in this particular game, I am not interested in Noah Gray. I'm not interested in using him in. And the other thing is with these showdown slates, you don't even have to start a tight end. So if it was a game of you have to start a tight end, then maybe. But in this case, it's not a situation like Isaiah Likely coming in behind Mark Andrews. Noah Gray is not Travis Kelce. He's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for the sake of drafting, if you're still drafting tonight, the bone bruise diagnosis is actually really, really good because I do think that, if he misses the Thursday night game, I think he's back for week 2. If he plays week 1, I think he kind of probably ends up as like maybe a little bit more of a decoy. If you're drafting tonight, I would say that you probably want to make sure that you have a second tight end late in the draft and grab somebody with like a little bit of fun upside here, right? We talked Dalton Kincaid, we talked Sam Laporta. These are guys who you can definitely pick up in the later rounds of your draft, and then you don't have to worry so much about it with Kelsey. And then when Kelsey comes back, then you can turn around and you probably have a decent tight end to actually trade in Laporta or Kincaid. So I'm fine drafting Kelsey as is, where he is. I dropped him a little bit in the ultimate cheat sheet. That was before the bone bruise diagnosis came out. But I think the bottom line is if you're drafting tonight, people are still scared about the injury, and you might get him a couple of spots behind where he is. If you have him and he's in the lineup tomorrow and he's just playing, I'm starting him no matter what. I really don't think that, unless you somehow double tap the tight end position to give yourself a really high quality second tight end, kind of a weird move, but is even Kelsey as a decoy going to be, that much worse off than say anything that's sitting on your waiver wire right now? We're sitting at the bottom of the barrel. I think they're probably equal at best.
Not to mention Mark Andrews banged up too. It would be a different story, right? Like Travis, 75% of Travis Kelsey is still the best tight end in the league. So if he plays, you start him and you take whatever happens. That's where I'm at. That's where you got to live. If you drafted Travis Kelsey, you were already living in that world.
And fun fact, the last time that Mahomes played a game without Travis Kelsey was 2017 in week 17, where they rested all of their starters. And that was Mahomes' very first start in the league in his rookie season. So Mahomes and Travis Kelsey have a great history of always playing together, always making it work, even through injury. So I think that if he's on the field, he's still going to be the Travis Kelsey that we all know and love.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, scampers! Don't say stuff like that. Don't say let's fucking go with
mods.
I say let's fucking get out with the
mods. Remove scampers from the chat, please. Thank you. guards, remove him.
Where is Dame Overboard with the slap across the back right now? Right. Come on,
get him out of my sight.
What else we got as far as injuries go?
Pretty much a lot of tight ends. Mark Andrews, again, expected to be ready to go, but we don't know for sure. George Kittle's status is still up in the air. Joe Burrow is practicing still, so that's good news for week 1. Miles Sanders is also a go for week 1. He also clarified that he was only away from practice for 7 days and that groin injury was kind of overblown, so that's good to know. As I said earlier, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are both now on the injury report and didn't practice. So that opens up avenues for both Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave. And as we'll get to later on in our underdog higher lowers, potentially some of the running backs and Chandler Jones. Although this isn't important unless you're in IDP leagues or playing matchups, after the social media drama yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw that. He is not at practice today, and he is still uncertain to play in week 1.
Now, I got something I want to say here, and I could be spiteful to all the people on Twitter that when I said my tight end stuff and I posted my breakout tight end stuff, and the response is always the same. It's Travis Kelsey and nobody else, or I'm going to pay up for tight ends, and then it'll just be all sunshine and rainbows, me and Travis Kelsey and Mark Andrews and George Kittle, and I'm definitely not going to draft Darren Waller because he's the one that's going to get hurt. All the people that said that to me, even though you were wrong, it's okay. You can come join me for yin and yang tight end. Give me your poor, your sick, your huddled masses. Come play the yin and yang tight end game. We'll find you a breakout tight end to replace your bone bruised and whatever's going on with Mark Andrews. We'll figure it out together. Even though you were so mean to me on Twitter and Reddit, come on in. We'll figure it out together. It's okay. Come on down.
The internet was mean.
Imagine.
I can't imagine.
They didn't want to read my tight end article because they were going to draft Travis Kelsey, and now you don't know who the breakouts are. Look what you did.
Look what you did. More stuff in the chat here. Ann Dunn says Kelsey's her only tight end on a short bench. Who does she drop to pick up a backup tight end? Tank Bigsby or Deuce Vaughn? I mean, to
From
me,
a
it's Deuce
Cowboys
Vaughn.
fan, it's Deuce.
Yeah.
Even as a Cowboys fan, it's Deuce.
Just what's the upside of he's never it's hard to say he's never going to be an every down back, but the upside is that he's Darren Sproles. I mean,
Unless he runs that trick play that Auburn ran over the weekend where their running back literally hid behind the offensive line and nobody saw him. That's the only way that Deuce Vaughn is going to get any yardage in this league. This is not preseason anymore.
Hops into the back pocket of the left tackle. Right?
Yeah.
Like, whoop, you can't see me.
I mean, hey, good work, man.
What do we think about Rico Dowdle? Britt, you're the Cowboys resident Cowboys fan here. Rico Dowdle is the as the potential short yardage between the tackles kind of guy?
No, I've been very concerned about our backfield, and I've been very vocal about that. I'm still surprised that Dallas hasn't signed somebody else to come into that backfield, because even Dowdle, the games that he's played in preseason and, a little bit of action that he's got, his yards per carry average is very, very suboptimal at around 3.4 to 3.9, depending on what all you're looking at. Malik Davis, kind of the same way, 3.4 to 3.9. And then you've got Deuce. So if Pollard can't handle this workload, which I still have questions that he can, since he's never carried the ball over 200 times, I'm a little bit worried about everybody in that backfield, to be quite honest.
Yeah. It has to be a deep league for me to stash Dowdle, but I still have Dowdle over Deuce Vaughn. We got another one in the chat here. Must start 2. Addison, Mims, and he specifies Marvin Mims, the rookie out of Denver, and Sky Moore. So that's what we're looking at here. Got to start 2 of those guys full PPR. Howard, what do you think? Addison, Mims, or Moore?
I would go with Addison and Moore, actually. I mean, I don't dislike Marvin Mims, but again, I know what this offensive scheme looks like from Joe Lombardi. I know that the targets are going to funnel Cortland Sutton's way in a big way. And while Mims will get some work, I just can't sit and fully bank on him. If Kelsey is either a decoy or out, I think Sky Moore definitely stands a great chance of of being on the field in most cases. And, he'll be that guy in 3 receiver sets. And because I don't even think Tony is fully healthy either. So I think Sky Moore gets some extra looks his way. So him and Addison for me. How about you, Britt?
Yeah, and Tampa Bay, even looking at last season's stats, gave up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And then we talked about it earlier. They got rid of Sean Murphy-Bunting. Their secondary doesn't look exactly like that hard-nosed secondary that it has in years past. Even if Addison is 3rd on that team in targets, I mean, they're going to be behind. They're going to throw a ton. And I think I agree with you on Sky Moore as well. I don't think Tony sees a full snap share. He's still questionable for the game going into tomorrow night. And he was getting rave reviews during camp. So I kind of like his chances to play more snaps and get more targets, especially if Travis Kelce is out.
Yeah, I'm going Sky Moore. I'm going Addison. And Philly Mike pointed out here, Kev Tompkins and I on the lightning round show yesterday, we built some DFS lineups, and Mims for 3,200 on DFS. That's where I'm playing Mims. So I think in your lineups, go ahead and throw Addison and Moore in there. And of course, Mims on your bench, this is a misconception, is that people think you don't root for guys on your bench. You're still rooting for Mims. And if you throw him in a DFS lineup, now it's just all fun across the board. So get him in there. And also Fatty McFats, I want to add, the answer is never Ronald Jones. Okay. So no Ronald Jones. Get that thought out of your mind.
Poor Ronald Joe.
Yes. Number 3 pick in a 10-team full PPR. Who we taking?
Well, I mean, if you're assuming that Jefferson and Chase go 1 and 2, then, I mean, in a 10-teamer, I'm happy taking McCaffrey here at 3. I'll lock him in, because coming back around in the 2nd and 3rd round, in a 10-teamer, there's definitely going to be, added running back depth to be had. There's going to be a solid wide receiver. It's so amazing when you go from like a 14-teamer to a 12-teamer to a 10-teamer, just seeing just how deep that player pool actually is. So, why not just take McCaffrey and count your winnings?
Well, here we go, Britt. On the eve of football, are you willing to take Bijan Robinson at 3?
That was actually going to be my answer.
Oh, she's in
That was my answer.
house. She Alexa, play Never Back Down or whatever that Tom Petty song is. And she won't back down.
I've talked about this all off season. This is not a dig at McCaffrey's talent. This is not a dig at anything that he has to offer. And it's definitely not a dig of, well, he's injury prone. What came out last week with the 49ers straight up saying that they were going to limit his touches and split that backfield and use him more in the receiving game rather than the rushing game, I think takes away a little bit of his ceiling. Whereas you have Bijan, who's going to be used as a bell cow, going to be used in the passing game, and Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. So in this format, I think that I would rather have Bijan over Christian McCaffrey.
I will say this, that was said, and that is true, but I've seen Austin Eckler finish as the RB1 while never having 1,000-yard rushing season in his career. I've seen Alvin Kamara rip everyone's faces off while never having 1,000-yard rushing season. So I'm still taking Christian McCaffrey there. But if you want to take Bijan, that's fair too. If you wanted to take Tyreek Hill, that's fair too. So my pick would be CMC, but don't feel like it's crazy to take one of those other guys if that's who you actually want to take in your heart of hearts.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, the biggest issues that we see with a lot of people in drafts. It's just the way you pick your team. You can take Bijan, you can take McCaffrey. If Chase or Jefferson falls to you, you can take them there. It's not about who you're taking in that first round, because let's face it, with the 3rd pick overall, you're going to be getting a super stud. You are, and that's fact. It's a question of, what do you know about your league mates? What do you know about what they're doing? And then how are you going to structure your team right afterwards? Like if you've got it all set in your head that, you're going after Mahomes or Hurts or Josh Allen, and you're taking a quarterback early, then you have to figure out how you're going to structure your running backs and your wide receivers and how you're going to go about doing it that way, because there are very few bell cow backs in this league to, who you can trust. So, if you're thinking that you're just going to take running backs and wide receivers, then great. Then you know what? Take whoever you want in the first round. Just make sure that, if you go wide receiver, that you don't forget running back. If you go running back, you don't forget wide receiver. That's always the biggest problem that I see happening, is that people they'll take a quarterback in round 3. They'll take Jalen Hurts in round 3 and then come back around and take TJ Hawkinson in round 4. And then they start ignoring the 2 most important positions right there, in running back and wide receiver. That's what I think that everybody needs to pay attention to when they're drafting. There's always more than one way to draft your team to win a championship. You just have to be smart about how you're going about building that roster.
Yep. And I'll add one last thing. If you really like a player and you want to root for that player, Britt wants to root for Bijan, right? Like if you want to, we've been covering high stakes drafts right on this channel. We've covered $2,000, $5,000 buy-ins. I've seen Tyreek Hill go 2. I've seen Tony Pollard go 5. $5,000 teams. So if you're in your hometown league and you feel like rooting for Tony Pollard because not only do you think he's great, but you're a Cowboys fan, draft Tony Pollard, man. Like draft your guy because he's not going to come back around. So take whoever you feel like getting, and then early on take the guys you like best, and then as Howard said, make sure you build your roster correctly because that will cover. Those are bigger mistakes. The bigger mistake is not balancing out your roster and building your roster correctly. There's not going to be a lot of there's not scrubs going in the first round. There's no CJ Spillers this year. So that's where we're at. We've got a pick 2 for my Superflex league. Kenny Pickett versus San Francisco. Over under for that game, surprisingly, only 40.5. To put that in perspective, the Commanders Cardinals game is set at 39. So you've got Pickett versus San Francisco, Jimmy G versus Denver, or you can let it rip, Anthony Richardson versus the Jaguars. So 2 of those guys, Britt, how you feeling?
I think you have to start with Anthony Richardson for one. And the other 2 are very, very difficult. I would say go ahead and go Kenny Pickett maybe those short dump downs to Najee Harris, because I just do not trust in Jimmy G. And from what I've heard and seen, Denver's offense has improved quite a bit. And with that offensive line and that pass rush, I'm not sure how many times Jimmy G is going to be able to get the ball off.
What do you think, Howard?
I think this is a terrible set of options to a super flex league. I mean,
dude, your wide receivers better be nasty.
You must have amazing running backs and wide receivers if these are your three options. But I'll agree with Britt. I'll go Anthony Richardson, and then I'll take Kenny Pickett here against San Francisco, and hope that Joey Bosa stays away, and Pickett doesn't have to like run for his life. The thing is that you're going to see a lot of it's that Denver secondary. It's the Denver corners that are definitely tough. And to see them against Devontae Adams, and then who knows what else, right? I mean, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of options. So I think this Denver defense can clamp down a little bit more on Adams. I think Pickett's got more options that he can roll with. So Richardson and Pickett for me as well.
And just like clockwork, somebody mentions the Raiders, and there is Get in the Game, Tommy, in the chat. Jimmy G gonna light up all you Raider haters. I will say, Joe, I know you guys are on a Pickett, 2 out of 3 on Pickett. So, hey, the consensus is there. But I just worry that game is going to just not be as good of a game as you think. 40-point over under. I think I would just go with Anthony Richardson because he's the most fun. And then I don't mind Jimmy G. I think he can get the ball to Devontae Adams, and that's what I would bank on. But Kenny Pickett, it's interesting to look at the over-under for that game being so low and how many must-start weapons are in that game. Like, think about how many players with, like, Debo, Ayuk, CMC, Najee, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, George Kittle. It's like that game is loaded with weapons, and I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed fantasy gamers if it goes the way Vegas said, which isn't always the case.
28-10 it finishes up. I mean, everybody takes the under.
It could be. It could very well be. We got one more here. DFS lineup. Joe Burrow, Josh Jacobs, Raheem Mostert, Higgins, Ridley, Mims, and Njoku. I think he's just throwing a lineup out there to see what we think about it. That lineup isn't much different from the one we made yesterday on the lightning round show. So anybody that's looking for DFS stuff, we ran through the whole slate. We put together some guys we like. We named more players than we got into lineups, but check that one out. That's on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We cover everything. DFS. John and I last on Quick Outs right before this, we gave all our picks for if you're in survivor pools, things like that. So we got you covered across the board.
Yeah, I'm also going to be writing up something for confidence pools, confidence pick'em pools. I'm going to be doing a post there. I'm just going to list each team, who I think is going to win. You do it all, without the spread, so it's just straight up there. I'm also going to do something on Survivor. Kayaks and Bronzebacks over here wants to know what we think about Washington as the week 1 pick in the Survivor League. It's kind of funny because to me, I look at this game as potentially the biggest trap of Survivor because everybody's in on this right now. Right. We don't know who's starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Nobody's got faith in Clayton Tune. Nobody's got faith in Joshua Dobbs. Everybody's kind of throwing some love over over the way of the Commanders. Even with Sam Howell, that just wouldn't that just be the biggest bust up of Survivor pools right there? I think if you're in multiple Survivor pools, then I think you can, or if you have multiple picks in a Survivor pool, I think you can use Washington there. But I mean, I don't know, man. To me, I always want to just get there through one week to the other and not be like, oh, well, I'm going to save this team for, this matchup or whatever. Because before you know it, you saved the Ravens for week 6. And the next thing you know, they get knocked out. So, I would say I say the Ravens only because they're on my mind against Houston as probably being my top pick for this week for Survivor.
Just pick the Ravens. Just pick the Ravens.
Yeah.
Unless your strategy is to pick whoever's playing the Cardinals every single week, in which case you can then pick the Ravens when they play the Cardinals down the road. But there's not the Ravens, like if you don't use the Ravens now, there's not a lot of easy matchups for them to use them until then. I think you just pick the Ravens. I don't know, Brett. Are you going home run swing with Washington? Washington's schedule is terrible, so there's almost no other time to use Washington.
I mean, I don't know because look at what happened last season with the 49ers and the Bears. I think everybody was going 49ers because they thought that they were just going to clobber the Bears and then ended up losing and knocked out like such a high percentage of those survivor pools. I think that trap games are a real thing.
Right.
I think I'm with Howard. I don't necessarily want to save up the teams just to use at a later week. I kind of want to go with more of a sure thing. And Washington's not a sure thing at this point. We still don't know how their offense is going to operate, if Terry McLaurin's going to play, what they're actually going to look like. I could see Arizona potentially, like Jonathan Gannon said, getting that fire in their belly against Washington in week 1.
So cringe. That dude is
It was so cringe.
Cringe factory. He better be a football genius, dude. Because, I mean, he's killing me. And I will say, yeah, the same people that picked Trey Lance last year and lost their survivor pool are going to lose on Sam Howell again this year. Man, just donating money. So maybe you just go with Lamar Jackson going in to face a rookie QB. I think that's probably the move. We got another one from Aaron here. My RBs are McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, Evan Hull. Receivers feeling thin. DK Metcalf, Mike Williams, Sutton, Addison, Kadarius Toney. Trade Javonte for wide receiver to the Taylor owner. I don't know, man. I think your running backs are. If you trade Javonte Williams, your running back's going to be Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, and Evan Hull. Isn't that thinner? I think you're actually looking better at wide receiver than you are at running back. No, what do you guys think on that one?
I absolutely agree.
Everyone thinks they have.
Not to mention, I mean, what wide receiver are you going to get? Because if you're trading your, I don't know, arguably your second or third best back, because listen, Javonte, with a strong workload is. Definitely has the potential of being better than Aaron Jones. I'm a big Javonte fan. I love the skill set overall. So what wide receiver are you getting? And, is that going to be, is that really going to push you over the edge moving forward here when you've got, I love Metcalf. I love Mike Williams. I love Cortland Sutton. I love Jordan Addison. That's 4 wideouts right there who I'd be more than happy with walking into the season.
Right. And you got to remember, injuries happen. Bye weeks start earlier than you think. Bye weeks start week 5. Aaron Jones has bye week 6. So if you trade Javonte Williams, you can start Evan Hull. Jonathan Taylor might be back by the time you literally be starting a running back off of waivers on week 6. So stick with what you got, my dude. You did pretty good. I like that team.
Yep. Agreed.
That's a Howard Bender team for sure with Sutton and Addison in there.
I love those guys. I'm telling you, man. Sutton.
That's a gang.
Sutton.
We got a report coming in from Ian Rappaport, usually pretty reliable. Scamper says that Joshua Dobbs just reported as the expected starter. Not good for my Clayton Tune share that I have in that one league, but Romeo Dobbs. So we finally have our QB 32 in the rankings. John and Pemble will probably find a way to rank Romeo Dobbs over Baker Mayfield, right, Howard?
Why wouldn't they?
Josh Dobbs over.
He just penciled in his rankings. He penciled in Cardinals QB ahead of Baker Mayfield.
Ahead of Baker Mayfield 32.
Yeah, just put him in there. Yeah,
not even. He's probably below. He's probably got him below like Mike White.
Just in case. I'm Josh Dobbs. He's got to be whoever it is the last option there. But hey, with Superflex and all those formats now, worth something to somebody. So there you go.
We've definitely seen worse.
We certainly have. I've seen I watched Kendall Hinton square off against Taysom Hill in a game. So it's not going to get any worse than that, right?
I've tried to eternal sunshine that out of my memory.
For real. That was painful, dude. And Kendall Hinton wasn't even the worst QB in the game.
Want to jump in and give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy, who happens to be a partner here over at Fantasy Alarm. There's some good stuff going on here with their Pick'em contests right now. Now, first and foremost, Underdog's giving an exclusive offer for all new customers. If you're new to Underdog Fantasy, you can claim your mystery Pick'em special. Plus, get up to $100 deposit match. All you need to do is sign up at fantasyalarm.com/underdog with the promo code ALARM, make your deposit, download the app, and head to the lobby to find out which player special you got. Now, by player special, they're going to basically hand you a pick'em, like a gimme pick'em kind of a thing. Like featured right now, if you go to Underdog Fantasy and you go to their pick'em contest, right at the top, featured, it says Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 total yards, higher or lower. So that way you can do, because you're going to do the pick'em contest, you can do 2, 3, 4, up to 5 different players there, and you get higher payouts based on how many you do. So they're handing you this Patrick Mahomes one to throw in there. And then if you're new to Underdog Fantasy and you sign up at fantasyalarm.com/underdog and use that promo code ALARM, they'll not only match that deposit, but then you're going to get another little mystery pick'em special that they're going to give to you there. So, you take those two, the Mahomes one, whatever pick'em special one, they give you the mystery one, and then boom, you do a third, and all of a sudden you're like 6x in your money if you get all 3 of them right. So it's definitely worth it. And I'll tell you what, let's give them each. Let's each give them a pick'em special. What do we want to do here? Britt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I can't get off this Jahmyr Gibbs hype train. His stat line for tomorrow is set at 3.5 receptions, and I'm definitely going higher on that. Last season, everybody wants to talk about how good the Chiefs were at stopping the run, but they actually ranked dead last in the amount of receptions they gave up to running backs, 6.59 over the course of each game. Now with Chris Jones likely not going to be able to play tomorrow, I think that this number is going to be even higher than that. The way that they are going to utilize Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that he goes higher than this stat easily.
Nice. Little Jahmyr Gibbs love. I full disclosure, in a draft I did last night, I actually took Jahmyr Gibbs.
I'll tell you what, I've been off Jahmyr Gibbs, but even I would bet over 3.5. I mean, why would they draft this guy? Like I'll take the higher than 3.5 for sure on Gibbs.
Yeah. What about you, Coop? You got a good underdog pick'em stat line for us?
I do got a underdog stat line. I'm looking at the stat line for Dallas Goedert this week against the New England Patriots, and they have him at 39.5 receiving yards, and I'm actually gonna go with lower on that one. People don't realize that Kyle Duggar has been a nightmare for tight ends. They just throw him on these guys one-on-one, and the Patriots for 5 straight years now, even with different personnel over certain periods, have just really pulled the rug out from tight ends. So even with a stat number set at 39.5, give me the lower on that one. I think that he's going to have a rough day.
I like that. I'm going to throw one that we just actually talked about a little bit, and that's Brian Robinson. 60.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. I think he could probably take care of the 60.5 rushing alone. But if you're going to give me rushing and receiving as an option, I'm going to take it. I think Brian Robinson goes higher. I think that, yes, I do believe that Washington will win this game against Arizona. Obviously, we were talking about it with the Survivor. I mean, it would be a fluke craziness if they lost, but I think Robinson's going to end up, kind of chewing that clock up in the second half. They're going to keep giving him some volume. Brian Robinson last year, for a lot of people, I just did I did coverage of MLB All-Star Fantasy Football Draft, and Brad Lidge won the league last year, and his league winner was Brian Robinson because he just kept getting 20 carry games. And it was just volume after volume after volume. And they had bonus structures in there to make that happen. So I feel like, Robinson, 60.5 rushing and receiving yards. I'll take that higher number there as well, for that.
Yeah, I have that all plugged in now, and that would pay out 6x. So $10 to win 60. If you're feeling froggy, $100 to win 600. I mean, feeling nice about those. The other thing I want to mention for people, always keep in mind that with the lowers, you get 2 outs. If a guy gets hurt or something happens, it's a free out on that. So keep that in mind. If you can go lower, it's nice. But I mean, with Brian Robinson. That feels like a slamma jamma. So make sure, go over to Underdog, use promo code ALARM. They'll match you 100% of your deposit up to $100 right now.
Right. And again, if you use this deal right now at fantasyalarm.com/underdog with the promo code ALARM, not only will you get that instant deposit match up to $100, but then they're also going to give you a mystery pick'em special. So who doesn't love that, right? Like you take their Mahomes over half a yard, you take your mystery pick'em special, you take, any of our picks there, 3 picks, and you 3 for 3 at 6x, you can go up to 5 for 5.
Feels nice. I'm liking it.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We got
nice.
One last question in the chat here. We have traded Kittle for Pitts. Honestly, I flat out have Pitts ranked higher than Kittle for this year. So the fact that Kittle is dealing with an injury as well, I like that one. I always go high upside, so that's my play on that. But yeah, I like the trade.
All right. Yep. Beautiful. All right. Well, we're sitting here at the tail end of it. Like I said, for anybody out there, you have any kind of questions, trade, lineup, waivers, anything like that, any league. Obviously, we're all available on Twitter. You can see our Twitter names. All 3 of us are always in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. So if you're a subscriber to our All Pro subscription, which if you're not, you should be, fantasyalarm.com/win. Right? That helps you out right there. So Discord, Twitter, Alarm tomorrow at 1 p.m. I'm doing a special AMA for Getting Buzzed. We're going to do another round of this here on Alarm Fantasy Football. And then leading right up to the game from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern, Coop and John and Pemba are going to be also doing a live stream show to get you guys all set and ready. So we got you all tucked away there, nice and tight. Feeling good, guys? You're all set for today? You're all good?
Fired up, dude. I'm fired up. I almost want to just go to bed right now, so it'll be tomorrow sooner. Just like Christmas style when you're a kid. Do you think I can just go to bed right now and wake up and it'll be football?
You might have some work to do. Coop.
I do. Right after I finish my DFS tight end article for tomorrow, it's right to bed, so we can get to football Thursday sooner.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for your questions in chat. Thank you for liking and subscribing the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. For Britt Flinn, Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender, the Fantasy Alarm. We'll catch you next time.